It all began decades earlier, in 1957, when humanity first reached beyond the bounds of Earth. Sputnik 1, the first artificial satellite launched by the Soviet Union, heralded a new age for humankind. It was a polished metal sphere, no larger than a beach ball, but it represented hope, curiosity, and the boundless ambition of a species just beginning to dream of the stars. Over the following decades, more satellites followed. First a trickle, then a flood. By the 1960s, there were a handful of satellites in orbit, providing basic communication and data collection. By the 1990s, the number had surged to hundreds, with satellites dedicated to GPS, broadcasting, and Earth observation. In the 21st century, the growth was exponential. By 2020, there were over 2,500 active satellites, with thousands more planned as part of massive constellations aimed at providing internet coverage across the entire globe. They promised instant communication, navigation, and a view of the world as a whole. The day it began, the sky was still clear, and the world was unaware of what was coming. People were sipping coffee, making morning commutes, and scrolling through endless feeds on their phones. The hum of satellites, invisible above, carried on without notice, threading together the fabric of modern life. And then, just as quietly, the sky started falling apart. It happened in the span of minutes. A single defunct satellite, forgotten by its makers, collided with a discarded fragment of a booster rocket. The collision shattered both into thousands of fragments, a cloud of high-speed shrapnel spreading outward like a virus in orbit. Those fragments collided with other satellites, sparking a chain reaction. It was the Kessler effect, a cascade that experts had warned about for decades, but no one had truly believed would happen. By noon, the first outages had begun. Cell signals dropped, and people cursed their service providers, oblivious to the disaster unfurling above. Satellites, once so meticulously placed, were being ripped apart by the multiplying debris. Television signals vanished. GPS faltered. Planes flying over the Atlantic lost contact with ground control, drifting blindly. The intricate, invisible web that held society together was unraveling. Days passed, and the chaos grew. Without communication, governments struggled to coordinate. Food supply chains faltered as delivery systems lost their way. In cities, the tension turned to panic. Looting began, first for necessities, then for anything. Water supplies were disrupted, and the shelves in supermarkets were emptied. The trust that society was built on eroded as quickly as the satellite network had. People, once connected to the entire globe, were now isolated, cut off from each other by the very technology that had promised to unite them. The world adapted, but it was a slow and painful process. Cities learned to ration electricity, using what little power they had only for the most essential services. The internet, once a limitless source of information, had become a memory. Gardens began to sprout in the spaces between apartment buildings. Local markets were established, filled with bartered goods rather than money. Craftsmanship, once overshadowed by mass production, found a new purpose. People learned to mend clothes, to fix broken tools, to create things from scratch. And though it was a far more difficult life, there was something undeniably human about the struggle to rebuild, to reconnect, to find meaning again in the midst of a shattered world.